Live Facebook videos. If you joined us last week, you would have seen us do some great tips about how to prepare for an interview. My name is Darren, I'm the internal recruiter here at Aspire. I'm here with my colleague Anne.
Hello!
And this is Rachel.
Hi!
And today we'll be taking you through the next steps and how to actually stand out in the interview itself. Now, if you missed last week's video, or if you happen to miss this one as well, then they're on our wall, so feel free to obviously check it out then. So first and foremost, we're going to go through some of the obvious points. So Rachel.
Brilliant. Hi, I'm Rachel and I look after everything in digital and media sales. Just a couple of obvious things to think about before you start an interview. Always be on time. It might sound really like, yeah, absolutely, of course I'm going to be on time, but the amount of things that can go wrong, just check the travel, check TfL, who knows what's going to happen, just give yourself plenty of time to get there. If you're unsure about anything, please ask your recruiter about directions or anything like that. That's what we're here to do, just help you through the whole process from beginning to end. I'd say normally leave about 10 minutes, so that is enough time for you to get there, ground yourself before an interview, really read the room, sort of make intros if you need to, and do some minor kind of last minute note checking.
It's such a great point because there's definitely a window between being on time and early, so 5 to 10 minutes. I also read a blog online where they talked about how if you're 5 to 10 minutes early, you're on time. If you're half hour early, then you're a nuisance.
Yeah.
And that's really because people will do plan their schedules and diaries around interview times and slots. So if you do find yourself a little bit too early, grab a coffee, take some time to relax, gather your thoughts, get your notes, and make sure you turn up about 10 minutes before, and that should be perfect. Great point.
And also, you know, we get nervous, so just breathe. When you're in an interview, just take your time. This is your time. They've given you that slot. There is no, you know, maximum time limit you have to get everything out. So just remember that. So just breathe through it. Really gather your thoughts. Speak slowly and calmly. And listen to what the interviewer is saying, sort of react to them, engage with them, and, you know, come back with some really specific answers. It's much better to give quality answers that are related to what they're asking you than lots of information that's a bit of an overload for anybody in the room.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. And I've just got some points to do with body language and how you can use your body language to your advantage in an interview. So the first thing, and it's something that it seems like such a small thing and something that maybe not as relevant as maybe other points, but it can have such a massive impact in an interview, and that is to smile. It seems like something that's so small, something that doesn't have much significance, but actually it can be so powerful in an interview. When you go in and you're meeting an interviewer and you smile at them, they naturally will want to smile back at you.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's a mirroring effect, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. You know, it's like that old saying, smile and the whole world smiles with you. Now we're in the room, we're all smiling just from mentioning the word smile. It really does make a difference, and yeah, definitely smiling is a big one for sure.
Absolutely. So make sure you go into your interview and smile. I think even just day to day anyway, when you see someone on the street, just smile at them. It's just nice to smile. Another point is wear a colour that pops. Now this is hugely important. If you're going into an interview that may be a group interview, or you're going through an interview process where the interviewer is speaking to loads and loads of different people during that week, you want to stand out. You want them to remember you. So even if they don't remember your name, they can remember what you're wearing. So if you're a guy and you're going in with a navy blue suit, you can maybe wear like a pink tie or a pink shirt. If you're a girl, you can wear maybe a pop of yellow or a pop of fuchsia. Just something that allows you to stand out in the crowd, and that so that an interviewer can remember you, and you really do stand out in a group of people in an interview. Another tip is, if you're someone that sweats a lot, it can be really awkward if you get to an interview and the interviewer sees sweat patches. Like, it's so awkward. Anyway, for me anyway, I just don't like seeing sweat patches. So don't wear colours that will allow sweat patches to come out. So like dark grey, red,
skylight blues, yellow.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one because interviews are a stressful situation, and I'm somebody that happens to me. I'll start to sweat just because it's the nerves. And so it's really being conscious of making sure that you are wearing colours that don't show that, and definitely something that it does put people off, and they probably won't mention it, but it really is something that you don't want to see.
It's just awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not cute.
Exactly.
But you want to be cute in your interview.
And on that note as well, just around the kind of first impressions thing, another thing to remember is try not to smoke before an interview. Actually, just don't do it. Just don't do it at all. Just avoid anything like that. Because first impressions are key. How you smile, how you come across, how you're wearing, but also, believe it or not, what you smell as well. That's a big thing. It's the whole thing. So, knock it on the head. Have as many as you like afterwards, but before an interview, just make that first point to make that really good impression.
The person you're interviewing may not be a smoker. It may actually really put them off. Those impressions are just so vital. So absolutely, I agree with Rachel. If you smoke, afterwards celebrate. But beforehand, making sure that you are smelling fresh, looking fresh, and not wearing things out.
Yeah.
Look like you sweat.
100%. Another great tip in terms of your body language is when you're speaking to the interviewer, you're sitting down. Try to lean forward when you're listening to what they're saying. It shows that you're engaged. It shows that you're listening. It's actually something that we learn as recruiters when we're going out to meet candidates or we're going out to meet clients. A great way to show that you're really engaged and you're really listening to what someone is saying is leaning forward. It seems like it's so simple, but you'll find actually that when you do that, someone will also lean in with you as well. So it's a really great tip just to show that you're engaged and you're definitely listening. And the last point from me on the whole body language things and first impressions is be ready to engage in small talk. It's something that I don't really like to do. I think it's really awkward, and actually I prefer not to engage in small talk. But actually, in an interview, it's a really powerful way for an interviewer to find out a bit about you, find out the more human side of you in an interview. So when they're asking you what you did on the weekend or what you're going to do on the weekend, depending on what side of the week you're on, it can really kind of give them a bit of an insight into who you are outside of the professional environment, and I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, and it's a great way of coming across as confident without, even if you're not feeling that confident at the time, it just breaks the ice, allows you to relax a little bit. I think it's great. And also, talking about the things on the weekend, yes, edit it a little bit as well, maybe not to be too open about what we do on the weekends, but at least talking about what you do outside of the work spectrum does give people a bit of insight into your personality.
Absolutely.
And I think leading on to the confidence side, it really does obviously help when it gives you that impression to show that you are confident. One thing to mention, guys, that I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you do have any questions in regards to any topics that we're talking about, feel free to comment and we'll be able to answer them at the end. So my next point is actually talking about how to be confident and not come across as arrogant in an interview. We actually did a survey of all our clients, and the second biggest mistake that candidates make is coming across too arrogant in an interview process. And that is such an easy thing to do. I've done it before. I know where you've done loads of research the night before, you really want to illustrate you're the best person for the job, you want to show that you've identified key things that could genuinely help that business improve their performance, but it comes across as just you're a know-it-all. So it's really a tactful process. So being able to come across confidently is using your information to your advantage rather than just giving the information for the sake of giving it. So something that really helps me with this process is understand, first and foremost, when I go to an interview, I'm there to understand. I'm there to understand the company, I'm understand their culture, understand a bit more about where they are from the inside. I'm there to learn about from them how they see the role, how they see the business and where the future is for someone like myself. And it's then to be able to make an impact, to be able to relate the information I have and knowledge I have done from my research to that's relevant to their perspective, and be able to come across as somebody who's considered and actually knows what I'm talking about. And it's a skill, but it's such a useful way of doing things. It's such an easy process. You get that person talking about themselves and the business, and you can just really relate to exactly what they want to hear. And again, you come across as a really strong and confident candidate. Another point as well is using certain techniques in how you put your points across. A bit about what Rachel was talking about earlier, about taking your time. So one of the key points that I like to use is the strategic pause. So when you actually make a point, pause. Because it really does make an influence. It allows the point to settle in. You can read the body language of the people who are doing the interview. Did it settle? Do they understand? Or do I need to elaborate a lot more? It just gives you that little extra time. And again, it shows that you actually are confident in what you're saying. So I think it's a great technique that always works. Another element, I guess, about confidence that we were talking about in the office was to do with the handshake. Now, obviously, everyone knows a great handshake and it is very important. You've got to make sure you're there and firm. But we also had scenarios where is it better to stand when the interviewer comes into the room or to be sitting down so when you do the handshake? I mean, what do you guys think? What do you think, Rach?
Yeah, that's an interesting one actually. It's a really good topic of conversation, and candidates have asked me this before, especially on the sales side. You know, what do you think to that? I think it's about how you read the room, going back to that scenario. If it's a big room and there isn't many seats, and a lot of people are obviously standing on this one reception, then by all means, yeah, absolutely, I think stand. I think should stand anyway, really, if you can. However, you know, there are situations where that can be also a smaller room where actually it's seats everywhere and you're asked to take a seat, then of course do. But in the situation where you are standing, it just means you're coming across as prepared, you're ready engaged in the process, and it shows that kind of respect and genuine kind of interest and enthusiasm already before you've even met the interviewer.
I can see that. You can be a presence when you're coming in.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a tricky dynamic because standing, obviously, I'm quite a tall person, so maybe standing could come across as quite intimidating, or, you know, if I'm in the room, I think reading the room is important because you could often be like looking out the window and that person walks in and you turn around like a dramatic, like, hi, nice
Don't
to meet you.
scare anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Just come across, so it's important to make sure that, you know, you read the room that way. I mean, what are your thoughts, Anne?
I think it can be. I think you can play it both ways. I think it can be a bit awkward. And guys, you'll get to know that I'm actually a really awkward person. But it doesn't actually come across when you meet me. I don't like awkward situations. So, for example, I've been in situations where I've been going into a room to meet a candidate, for example, and they're sitting down on the same side of the room that I'm coming in at, and so I've come into the room, they want to shake my hand, they're trying to get up at the same time, and it's all a big mess and it's really awkward, and just let's not be awkward, guys. So I think that if you're in a room and you're waiting for an interviewer to come in, then absolutely sit down, but maybe sit on the other side of the room so it gives them time to kind of come across to you, for you to stand out and then for you to stand up, and then for you to shake their hands. I think that probably is the best way to do it if you're going to be waiting in a room for an interviewer, I think.
I really like that, yeah, seeing us, so you can see coming, you can preempt, you give yourself that chance to get up, and then you can be there and
attack the handshake. Yeah,
absolutely, you can nail it. Absolutely, great.
And just a few more points from me, just in regards to answering questions and what's the best way to answer questions in an interview. One point that I always make when I'm speaking to candidates, or if I've got candidates going out to meet my clients for interviews, is being sure that when you're answering questions, you're answering questions about yourself and not about your team or your company. So you don't talk about what your team did or the campaigns that your team did or the great things that your company have done, which are all amazing, but the interviewer is interviewing you because they want to know what you do. They want to know what your responsibilities were. They want to know the things that you did on that campaign. So it's so important that be careful to not actually talk about what your team did and talk about what you did as an individual on that campaign, or in a project or whatever. Yeah. Next point just on that as well is, I think it's so powerful, and this is something that I think a lot of us miss out when we're going out for interviews or even on our CVs, is the proof is in the pudding. You can have all the skills in the world, you can know how to use every kind of analytical tool there is to use. You can know how to run email campaigns, know how to do PPC campaigns, how to do SEO campaigns, how to do audits. You can know how to do all of those things, but ultimately what we want to see is the results. What were the results of the campaigns that you did? What were the numbers you got? What, if you're an email marketer, what was your click-through rate on the campaign? And make it relative as well. So for example, if you say to an interviewer that, my click-through rate on this campaign that I did was, 0.5. Now, that as a standalone statistic doesn't actually sound that impressive. But if it's compared to how it was before, so if the email campaign click-through rate before you joined was 0, like no one opened your emails, and then you got up to 0.5 in a matter of 3 months, that's amazing, and that's something you should definitely share. So not only having your KPIs and your results available for your interviewer, but also making them relative, even if it means writing it down and taking it into an interview with you. I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, so important. That's the difference really between being a candidate who's just, they like, impressive, and being someone they want for the job.
Absolutely.
I think, Rachel, you do sales recruitment, you recruit salespeople, so that's even more relevant in your market, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it goes without saying, numbers, facts, figures, in sales, it's all all about revenue, isn't it? What you made, what you target, how you brought that in. You know, you should know that in sales. You should have your figures ready, know your KPIs, know how you're measured. And I'd say be really specific. Like Anne mentioned there, if you go in and say, "Oh, I hit like 120% target or whatever," obviously that's brilliant. What target? What revenue? What number? That they want to know what kind of value that is. What facts and figures? What number you brought in? How much of it, you know, was new business, and was that all done yourself? Again, going back to a specific answer. Just being really specific and keeping it specific, straight to the point. Dan, this is a result, this is what I did, that's what I learned, you know, and moving forwards, just, you know, try not to dwell too much around the edges. They just want to know how you got there.
Yeah, and again, you show that goes to confidence. All these things sort of linking, as you may have noticed, but it also goes to confidence. But also, on the other way, if you feel you haven't quite hit your targets, or for whatever reason, the year previous your figures aren't that impressive, I'd still talk about it, because it's going to get addressed, they're going to ask you for it, and it gives you a chance to address and attack the negative yourself. And a great way of responding to that is actually identifying, well, what have you learned from that experience, and what ways can you take that into your next role to make sure that you can improve as an individual around that. I mean, that's so much more powerful than trying to defend yourself about why things didn't work out, and actually proactively saying, look, I understand figures weren't great, but this is what I've learned, and this is what I'm going to do to improve. And I think that has the same impact regardless of whether your figures were on target or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I really agree with that. And it's all about remembering what your USPs are as a candidate. I think whenever you go to an interview, you know, what makes you unique? Everyone's unique. What makes you specifically stand out for this role? What values can you bring to their business that they perhaps don't have already? So just really remember that. And I think a lot of candidates put that out the window, and it can be quite generic. If you have that ready and that evidence to back that up, you are already storming the way ahead.
1000%. And even just on that, if you have all these amazing things about you and you don't say it, the interviewer will not know. The interviewer is not telepathic, okay? I know it sounds so patronizing, but there are so many things that are great about you as an individual, so many things that you can really sell to the interviewer, to the company, and you just don't say it. And I think it's such a massive, massive waste, because ultimately you want to stand out. There has to be something different about what you do, what you can bring to the company that allows you to stand out. And if you don't say it in an interview, the interviewer will never know, you know, and that can really be the thing that allows the interviewer to choose you over somebody else. So I think it's so important. If you have the interviewer will always give you a chance to talk about things that they may not have specifically asked you about. Use the opportunity to sell yourself, to talk about your USPs, talk about the things that set you apart from the crowd, because you as an individual, you are unique and you can bring value to a company, so you need to let them know exactly what that is. And just on the whole topic of value, one thing that some people do sometimes is they come to us, they want a job, they're interested in an opportunity that we're recruiting for. They tell us what salary they're on now, what they want, in their next opportunity, and we tell the client this. Now, said candidate may go into an interview, and then the interviewer is asking them, okay, what are your salary expectations, etc., etc. Now, let's say they know the role was paying between 25k to 28k. They've told the recruiter they want 28k, but to the client they've told them they want 25k. And it's like you're underselling yourself. If you know your value and you know how much you're worth and you know the great things you could bring to a company, why on earth are you going to undersell yourself?
It's a really tricky situation. I think it's very much an etiquette thing. Us Brits, we're a bit not polite to talk about salary in an interview. Forget it. It really is. Like, it's important to get that across. And there's nothing wrong with asking for what you want, because ultimately that's what you're going to get. If as Anne said, if the salary is between 25 to 28, you're looking for 28, and you say, I'm looking for 25 plus, guess what? You're going to get offered 25 if you offer the job. And if that's not going to be enough for you to accept it, then that whole process goes out the window. So be confident, look them in the eye and tell them exactly what you want from this opportunity and what you feel you're worth. And 9 times out of 10, it's what you get.
Exactly.
So 100%, I think that's a great point.
Definitely. No, definitely. And it really just is about how you value yourself and how you see yourself. And I just really want to kind of drill down that point, that it's so important to believe in yourself, have confidence in yourself, in your abilities, and really, really stand by your value as an individual. It's so important. I can't stress it enough. And just the last point for me on this, how to answer questions, things, is how to ask questions. So having insightful questions in mind about the industry, about the company, about the role, so useful, because it really, really shows the interviewer that you've done your research, you're really, really bought into the role, you're super interested in the opportunity. You know, it's just so powerful to have those questions, and it's not just your typical questions about, oh, you know, I don't know what typical questions would look like, but if there are any typical questions that you could ask, like staying away from those and talking more about, you know, where's the role going to go for me, what am I actually going to be doing day to day, who am I going to be working with, those sorts of questions. And if there are any changes in the industry that you've noticed, you know, you can ask questions about how have those changes impacted the business, if there's been any impact on the business. So there's so many insightful questions that you can ask in an interview that really will allow you to stand out.
And all that takes is just a 5-10 minute extra bit of research looking into those type of things that will catch the interest, and again, separate you is such an easy thing to do.
Absolutely.
Picking 2 questions that are really key, really topical, and show that you actually care and really want to contribute to this process.
100%.
And don't be afraid to bring those questions in with you. If, you know, just like, it's much better to have, I'd say, 20 questions ready. You might only ask 5 of them, but at least you've got all of that prepared to just actually come out with the information once you've been in that interview to actually make a really good decision on what you want to do next.
Definitely.
And is it the right match for
20
you?
questions.
Yeah. I'm not going to say 20, but I think it's
Don't
just
ask
to have
20 questions.
that ready and maybe prepare yourself for that 20, because you know, you go blank, things happen, a lot of them will be answered in the interview anyway, but it just means you've got things backed up to really kind of get those last bits of information in as well.
So what's your thoughts on, Rachel, then, on how to feel really comfortable, you know, in the interview, you know, being able to be in a position where you can answer those questions and be able to sell yourself in the right way?
I think being comfortable is hugely important. You know, it is can be stressful for people. It can be exciting, but ultimately there's more nervous energy around when you're interviewing. So just trying to make the interview processes as normal, I think, as possible is ultimately what we're here to help that with as well, and help those nerves and help you through that process, like emotionally, as well as the techniques and everything else, but also just being there in the room, and just remembering that you're there because you've been selected for that role.
Yeah.
You've got a specific skill set that is a good match for the interviewer for this position. Already that's a winner. So just remember that you're there, you know, ahead of a lot of people already, and also that the interviewer is probably quite nervous themselves. That it's for them, the way the market is. There's a lot of competition. You might be out for quite a few positions already. You probably are. You know, great if they're the only one, but chances are you're reviewing lots of different opportunities to make that right choice. And they'll know that, so they'll want to be selling their business to you as well. So just be, you know, aware that it's definitely a two-way conversation. It's about 2 people getting together, just having a conversation, the way I look at it, and just seeing if there's a right match for both people.
Totally. And it is a conversation that the interviewer just understand they've been trained, they're comfortable in this scenario. You probably haven't been, so they are nervous, but they are masking it by their training. So, you know, again, more normally you can make the scenario, the better, the more they will relax, the more you'll relax, and allows your personality to come out, allows you to be able to remember relevant examples and just to really flow. And again, it does take practice. You know, there is what we call ring rust. You know, if you haven't interviewed in a while, practice with your friends, practice get people to interview you, just get into the habit of being able to talk comfortably and normalise the situation. I think that's a really great point. And true, you know, there's so many opportunities out there for similar skill sets. So many companies are broadening the scope about what they look for in a candidate. So you will potentially have few opportunities, and the company does know that. And if you're there in front of them, it's because they want you. And if you obviously are able to illustrate that in the right way, they will want you even more. So, you know, understand that you also are interviewing them for that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so just on that point of, you know, you're interviewing the company, it's one I can't stress enough, like, it's such a competitive market right now. Everyone wants great talent, everyone wants top talent. So in as much as you are being interviewed, you are also interviewing your potential employer. And so they will be doing their best to sell their company to you as well, especially if you are doing really well in the interview and they want you. They're doing their best to sell to sell themselves to you as well. So don't feel like it's just you, you're the only one that's being interviewed, because you're interviewing them as well. So that should also take the edge off your nervousness as well, I think.
100%.
Totally.
And things that also help, obviously, if someone comes in and they offer you a glass of water, you do take the glass of water. You might not want it then, but I can guarantee after 40 minutes of talking in a high pressure environment, as it were, you're going to want that glass of water. And it also gives you time to think about your answers. You know, if you suddenly have a blank, it happens to everybody, take a sip of the water, gather your thoughts, and then you can come back with an amazing answer that's just going to blow the interviewer away. You just use that. I think, and the last point is, from me, is enjoy it. I know it's a funny one, and everyone's like, how can I enjoy this? I guess I'm from a performing background, so I kind of like the emphasis of interviews, and I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't. But it is an opportunity from wherever you're coming from to see the other side, to make a new network, to have like a conversation about something really exciting that's potentially going to be, you know, your next step in your career. So just enjoy it.
It does
and
add
have
to the
fun with it.
experience, you know, and that's all you can do. You can be yourself, enjoy the moment, and if it works out, fantastic, you know, and if it doesn't, there's always another chance that you can learn from the opportunity. You can speak to your recruiter and understand, identify ways in which you can improve for the next step, and take that feedback and move forward. You know, it is you know, interviews at the end of the day are just that. It's just an interview.
Yeah.
So, you know, enjoy it. You know, make sure that you give yourself the best chance, and everything else will tend to work out for yourself.
It's just a bridge closer to where you want to get to. Just think of it that way.
Indeed. Great. So, did you have any questions that come in?
Yes, we've got a couple of great questions. So, how much personality should you show, and is there any risk of showing too much?
It's a good question.
It's a really, really good question. I think I'm a firm believer in allowing your personality to come across in an interview. I think it's so important, and it's another way that you can stand out in an interview. It's so important you allow your personality to come across, because a lot of the time companies will interview you and employ you on the basis of not only just your skill set, but will this person get along with the team? You know, does this person have the type of personality that will allow them to thrive in this environment and in this company? So it's important that you actually allow your personality to come across, because it could be the reason you get the job. But you don't want to allow too much of a personality to come across. So, I mean, if you're, you know, a bit like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, just don't let too much of a It's a balance.
It is a balance. I think it's important to be yourself. You know, and it's a two-way street. As much as they're trying to fit the culture fit around you, you also want to make sure that the culture fit is right for you as well as an individual.
Definitely.
Because if you start somewhere and you're not excited about the environment, you're not going to like it, and you're not going to stay for a very long time. So it's important to be yourself, but in a professional setting, you know, maybe not be yourself down the pub, be yourself at work, you know, in a social gathering, and on your best form, really. And that's really the best way to get your personality out. It's just being true to yourself, but within the context of the scenario.
Yeah, don't be too familiar with the interviewer, because they are still at that point a stranger to you. So you don't want to act like you've known them for years when you actually don't. Chill on that.
But also be positive.
Yeah,
you know, there's no harm in smiling and laughing in an interview.
Yeah.
It kind of breaks the ice a bit as well.
Definitely.
Good question.
Another one is, isn't it potentially bad to come across as too confident?
Yes, absolutely. But again, that's that confidence and arrogance element. It's like I mentioned, it's about being tactful, you know, with it. So, you know, confidence, you know, you can show confidence without necessarily just speaking, you know, eye contact, your body language, you know, being able to be assertive with what you're saying, you know, having your notes and information. People believe that is a sign of not being confident. It actually isn't. You know, having your notes and being prepared also gives you that confidence that you know what you're talking about. So there's ways in which you can illustrate confidence without essentially speaking or being somebody who is a know-it-all, like we mentioned previously. So I find in some ways as well too, even if you're not necessarily a naturally confident person, you know, fake it till you make it. You know, practice the confidence. Make sure you speak clearly. Take your time, and you illustrate confidence, even though inside you may not feel as confident as you feel like you're coming across.
I think there's a very thin line, isn't there, between like confidence and arrogance, and like you can do one thing and it can tip you over to the other side of being arrogant. So it really just is about making sure that you take these tips, kind of like things, little things like making eye contact, being concise and specific when you're speaking with a loud, not a loud voice, but with a loud enough voice that allows you to come across as confident. But yeah, there is a very thin line, so you just need to be careful that you don't tip over to the side of arrogance, I think. Yeah,
I think mirroring the interviewer as well, that helps with that. So just look at how they come across, mirroring their body language, their tone, and that will help with any kind of, if you're unsure about getting that balance right as well.
Absolutely. Great, well, thanks. That's all the time we have for questions. If you have any more, please keep commenting. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. It's been obviously great, and hopefully you got some tips that would be help you in your next interview. And please keep following our Aspire Facebook page to see when we next go live. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.